good morning. It is Tuesday. I'm pretty sure it's the 24th today, 24th February. Champions League second leg tonight against Karabakh at St James's Park. It's been 4 consecutive away games. League, FA Cup, Champions League, League again. Newcastle won 3 out of 4 of them. Yes, it was disappointing to lose that Man City game. Was the disappointment of the loss, the disappointment in the result, softened by the blow, softened by the quality of the performance? I think so. We'll revisit that shortly. I'm back in the car, back in my natural setting, natural habitat for these sort of videos. And the topic I want to discuss today, and sort of air some thoughts and think out loud, essentially, as I am on my way to get my hair cut, is Nick Woltemade. Right. So, just to go back, in the last 4 games, we have, take this off, played Tottenham away, well, they're all away, Tottenham in the Premier League, Aston Villa in the FA Cup, Karabakh in the Champions League, and Manchester City in the Premier League. Now, if you'd have said to any switched on Newcastle United fan, right, because in every football club, in every fan base, every fan base has their dreamer who thinks they're going to win every single game and be dominant in every minute of every match. You have those fans who might not think they will be, but expect them to be, or want them to be, or think they should be. And then you have the fans like Ty from Arsenal Fan TV, who are just bring that next level of delusion, and he's blamed results on the weather, all sorts of rubbish, and thinks that Arsenal are the greatest team that has ever kicked the ball, right? But if you'd have asked your switched on, common sense, vast majority of Newcastle fans, in my opinion, would you take, out of those 4 games, 3 wins out of 4, they would have snatched your hand off? Absolutely, without a doubt, yes. What a return. Now, some people might have had different ideas about which games they would have won or would have liked us to win. For example, I personally would have backed Newcastle to get the job done tonight, even if we'd have won lost the first leg. So I personally, if all my chips on the table, if I had, and this is being picky, right, if someone said to me, right, next 4 away games, you can decide the results, but there must be 3 wins and 1 loss, I would have gone win at Tottenham, win at Villa, lose 1-0 narrowly at Karabakh, and then win at Manchester City. Because I think if you lose at Karabakh, yes, it is a bit of a disaster, but if you then beat Manchester City at the Etihad, we're right back up there, aren't we? But anyway, so realistically, that was a fantastic return. Now, and that performance against Manchester City was so pleasing. They fought, they kept going, they stuck it on City in that second half. We were in the game. We were never out the game. There's been so many matches against Man City, particularly when we concede early. That was the 13th minute concession. So many games that when we concede, and you're like, right, that's it now. You know, you always believe and back your team, but you just know in the back of your head that that's it, it's gone. But we were always in that game. Always in that game. Not our best, most fluid, most cohesive attacking performance, but there was never a minute in that game where we were like, oh God, we're outside. City are outside here. Bit of a kick in the teeth when they scored so soon after us equalising. Bit of a kick in the teeth, our equaliser being chalked off. But there we go. And it says a lot that the celebrations on full time probably have got something to do with Arsenal drawing against Wolves. And City, you know, they're going for the Premier League, and in my opinion, I think they'll win the Premier League now. But I think it was just relief because they were hanging on. the end of that game, Manchester City were playing counter-attacking football against Newcastle United at the Etihad. They were hanging on for dear life. We pushed them and pushed them and pushed them and pushed them all the way. Anyway, I'm not going to dwell on that too long. I've done a previous video on that. Just knows how tired I look. Anyway, enough about that. Nick Woltemade. So in the past 3 games especially, he has played not up front, not in the 10, but as a midfielder, a la the Joe Linton transformation almost. He's played the left of a midfield 3, with license to roam a little bit. Journalists who know a lot more than me and who are more eloquent speakers than me have covered this in some depth. What do we think about this? Is this good for Newcastle? Is it good for Nick Woltemade? I'd say the answers to those questions are right now, yes and no. Is it good for Newcastle? Yes. Because although I think Nick Woltemade is probably the best finisher at the club. I mean, I know Johan Wisser scored 19 league goals from open play last season, but I've seen Soddle from him in a Newcastle shirt to suggest that he is this amazing finisher. The 3 goals he scored, 2 tap-ins, and that one in the Champions League was... I've seen people say that was the only way he could have scored that goal, with the way the goalkeeper was moving. I disagree. It was a scruffy finish. He shanked it and he got lucky. Anyway, Nick Woltemade is the best finisher at the club, I think. Maybe second only to Harvey Barnes, who also has hit a bit of a dry patch recently, isn't he? Anyway, so is it good for Newcastle? Right now, yes. I think Newcastle look more, I use that word again, cohesive, more together, more fluid, more creative. They look more of a team, more of an attacking unit, with Anthony Gordon in the centre forward position. Now, Anthony Gordon's goal return in the Premier League is pretty dire, isn't it? I think it's 1 goal from open play, 1 goal in the last 12, 13 months. I mean, how many has he scored in the Prem this season? Off the top of my head, I can think of 2. It must be more than that, but off the top of my head, I can think of 2. And only one of those is from open play at Anfield a few weeks ago. Obviously, the penalty against Tottenham at home as well. But in terms of overall play, I think Anthony Gordon brings more to the party. His movement, his pace and behind. Yes, his attitude, in my humble opinion, from someone who's watching it on telly, is questionable at times. I think he gets frustrated with his teammates, which the best players do. I've read Steven Gerrard's book, and he used to be fuming with kids he played school football with when they weren't on the same wavelength. And to be fair, who at a local level was going to be on the same wavelength as Steven Gerrard? There was one such occurrence against Man City, Anthony Elanga. I think I mentioned this in my previous video. Anthony Elanga's got the ball, and the opportunity is to play that ball through, either a through ball around the back of the defender, over the top to Anthony Gordon, or to feet, and he dithers and dithers and dithers and does nothing. And Anthony Gordon, rightly, looked fed up, doesn't cover it, put it that way. But I think he gives more to the team. He is an outlet. Nick Woltemade, in the 9 this season, as a striker, you take the finishing away, we're sort of playing a man down. He doesn't really press. He's coming far too deep. The centre-backs find it very easy to occupy him. He does get bullied. His hold-up play at times hasn't looked great. And he comes far too deep. So I think that is one of the reasons why the wingers were struggling so badly early on in the season. It was because of Nick Woltemade. Now, because Woltemade was scoring the goals and looking fantastic in front of goal, it was almost like, well, it must be their fault then. Do you know what I mean? Woltemade is a cracking footballer. I'm just not sure where he fits into this Newcastle United team, because right now, Anthony Gordon up front is better for Newcastle. When Wissa finally gets his act together, he will be better up front for Newcastle. Second part of that first point, is it better for Newcastle? Is it better to have him in midfield? Does he offer an awful lot in midfield? I'm not sure. He's very good on the ball. No one's doubting his technical ability, his dribbling ability, the little flicks, touches, his vision, and his ability to create space for others is fantastic. There's no, might as well put my handbrake on. There's no two ways about it. We saw it against Carabao, particularly in the first half. He drags players with him, creates space, and pops it off around the corner, and it is a joy to watch at times. However, it's moments. It's very small moments in the game. Is he good enough in terms of tackling to play in midfield? I don't know. My gut right now says no. Has he got the legs to play in midfield? I'm not sure about that either. But Eddie Howe said he's really impressed with his endurance, his fitness level. So Eddie Howe sees this guy every day at training. He knows, he's forgotten more about football probably this morning than I'll ever know. So I've got to take his word for it. Man City. The Man City second goal. Antoine Semenyo dribbles past Nick Woltemade far too easily. Now, Antoine Semenyo is one of the best wingers in the Premier League. There's no two ways about it. He is a player I would have loved us to sign in the summer. Hindsight is a wonderful thing. However, I wish we'd have paid 55 million for Antoine Semenyo instead of Anthony Elanga right now. Elanga will come good though, I'm sure of it. But Woltemade does not offer that resistance. So it's a question of, where do you play him? Where's he going to be best? Because I think he clearly can play as a centre forward. He's Germany's starting centre forward. Now, Germany are not the force they once were, of course, but they are a major player on the international scene. But I think in the way Eddie plays, 4-3-3, the intensity is our identity, the dynamism, the press, etc., etc., etc. I don't think there's a place for Nick Woltemade. I really don't. I think you play him at centre forward and beg him to stay and populate that area between the width of the 18-yard box. By all means, dovetail with the player behind you and come deep. If they're going to run beyond, fine, link the play and help up with that. But please, do not be coming back behind the midfield to get the ball. I think he can play up front with a number 10 behind him, with someone who is going to run beyond him and offer that. Germany do it with Serge Gnabry. Elise is in and around him as well, and the guy who used to play for Manchester City, he signed him from Schalke, I can't remember his name, Leroy Sané. You have players buzzing in and around him, whereas at the moment, when we play a 4-3-3 with Nick Woltemade up top, the wingers are staying high and wide, and then Tonali isn't the player to get up and around you. Bruno can, but doesn't have the legs. Bruno is the opposite of most of our midfielders in terms of he's a footballer, not an athlete. Jacob Ramsey, he's not a number 10. Joe Willock has got the legs to get up and around him, but he's not a number 10. Lewis Miley definitely isn't. There you go. So if we signed a archetypal number 10 in the summer to play behind him, that could work. But then, in terms of pressing, unless this number 10 that we may sign is the perfect modern player in terms of he's got the silk, he's got the creativity, he's got the flair, he's got the vision, the passing ability, the technical ability, and the press, that's perfect. But most number 10s are fading from the game. I think of someone like Mesut Ozil, right? We can't afford one passenger in our team, let alone two. And let's be honest, if we had a Mesut Ozil playing behind Nick Woltemade, we're not going to be pressing away. Do you know what I mean? So it's, where does he fit in this current system? Where does he fit? Because he's too good a player in terms of his ability and talent to just leave on the bench and just forget about. And he's our record signing, man. £69 million. Where does he play? Where does he play? Is it a confidence issue? Would it have been better for Anthony Gordon to give him that penalty the other day and see him score it? Does it make sense to play Woltemade up top tonight, knowing that Qarabağ are not a great team? How they've got this far in the Champions League is beyond me. And, you know, we should be able to create some chances for it. But then playing Woltemade up front is not good for the team, because we saw earlier on in the season, I mean, we've struggled at times throughout the whole season, really. But earlier on in the season, when we were really struggling, but Woltemade was scoring, right? So he was benefiting, well, the team was benefiting through him scoring, of course. But the overall team performance, it wasn't clicking and coming together. And it isn't. And I don't think it's going to. Next season, we might see something different with a full pre-season with Nick Woltemade and a whole this season tutelage and education from Eddie Howe and the team. I don't see a place in the team for him right now. If Bruno Guimaraes comes back at the weekend, I know he's not going to. If Bruno Guimaraes is magically fit for Everton, Nick Woltemade is not starting that game, is he? Not a chance. It will probably be Tonali, Joelinton, Bruno, Tonali, Bruno, Ramsey in midfield. So the second side of this coin, is it good for Nick Woltemade? No. None of this is good for him. We have a World Cup on the horizon. I'd say he's probably got enough faith in the bank from the German national squad, the German national coach, to keep playing him, because when he plays for Germany, he scores. Not every single time, but his strike rate for the national team, the senior team, is pretty impressive. He scored loads of goals in Germany. I'm going to have to stop this now. Please bear with me for part two. Here we go, part two. Post haircut. Not as adventurous as my last haircut, but the old familiar, clean. Right. So, where did we get to? Nick Woltemade has money in the bank for Germany. Scored goals in Germany for Stuttgart last season, scoring for the national team. But it's going to come to a point where if he keeps playing midfield, and then when better midfielders become available, i.e., I know it's going to be a while for Bruno Guimaraes, but the more Jacob Ramsey and Joe Willock play, the better they're going to get. Joe Willock is a player who needs that consistent game time to get up to scratch, up to level, maintain, get to those standards and maintain them. And I get the feeling so early on in his Newcastle career, but Jacob Ramsey's the same. Also, Lewis Miley, I don't think he's far away. From Eddie Howe's press conference yesterday, it seemed like Sven Botman and Johan Wissa will be in the squad for tonight. Lewis Miley will not. So I'm hoping Lewis Miley will be available for probably Manchester United, because Eddie Howe does like playing a player from the start as soon as they're ready. We've seen that before, but I don't think he'll play against Everton. But then you've got the question of where will Lewis Miley play, because in midfield at the minute we're not too bad, are we? Sandro Tonali, Jacob Ramsey, Joe Willock, Joe Linton has just come back, but at right back we are struggling. Tino shouldn't be too far away. Emil Kraft, I think his Newcastle career is gone, to be honest, and Trippier is on his own. So I think Lewis Miley will I reckon we'll see him play at right back before we see him play in midfield. Anyway, there are, as I've just detailed, 4 central midfielders who are fit and available and ready to play. 4 proper central midfielders, yeah? So Nick Woltemade, although he has played in that left side of that midfield 3 a fair bit recently, sooner or later that's gonna come to an end, isn't it? And will that then affect his national team selection? Because not selection, but will he be at the forefront of the Germany coach's mind to start with that number 9? Well, I think he plays. Does he play number 11 for Germany? I think. I might be wrong. Who knows? Who knows? But I do think Nick Woltemade's career as a Newcastle United centre forward might be done for the time being. He said numerous times his favourite Germany players, Kai Havertz. Could we see him morph into that sort of role? But Kai Havertz is never going to be a player who gets 20 goals in the league a season, is he? Who knows? Nick Woltemade, he is a bit of a puzzle for Eddie Howe at the minute. I don't see an obvious positional change and an obvious positional solution, like, oh, fuck me, just put him in there, bang, that makes sense. There isn't. He is a talented football player, there's no doubt about it. It's more obvious now than ever that he was a bit of a panic buy, I think. And I don't mean that as a dig at Nick Woltemade. I like him. I like the way he applies himself. I like the way he carries himself in the Newcastle shirt. I think he's done himself credit, living off absolute scraps at times. But I don't think he fits into the way we play in any way as a striker. He's so different to Alexander Isak. And I know Callum Wilson was there with Isak, but our whole game was designed around getting Isak into positions to score goals. And Isak himself was a big part of that. You know, his movement, his pace, his ability to hold the ball, to dribble, to run in behind, to run at players. He could do everything. Penalties, left foot, right foot, headers, in the box, out the box. The only thing I don't think he ever did for Newcastle was score a free kick. Whereas Nick Woltemade, we've seen he's got that finishing prowess when you deliver the ball to him in the box. However, he doesn't seem to get himself into that position enough, and the team seem to be struggling to find a way to get him in that position. I don't know what the answer is. I've sort of repeated this a couple of times. I really don't know what the answer is, and I wish it was obvious. And I wish there was a clear answer to get Nick Woltemade into the team, playing well, scoring goals, because there is such a good player there. But I don't know the answer. And I've spent probably near on 20 minutes now throughout the 2 clips discussing this, and I don't know what the answer is. If we could completely rejig the team tomorrow, I think it's a 4-2-3-1 with a pacey, creative, good dribbling, goal scoring, running number 10 behind him. So when Nick does drop deep, that 10 can run beyond. That 10 can then carry the ball and allow Nick Woltemade to get further up the pitch in those central areas and deliver the ball to him on a plate. But right now, in the current system we have, with the current players we have and their skill sets, I don't see an answer. I did think playing Anthony Gordon behind him would work. I don't think Eddie's tried that in that sort of 4-2-3-1 formation. You could give that a go tonight. I would say Ramsey and well, you could maybe rest Tonali. One or two of the 3 or 4 midfielders in that midfield role. Alanga off the right, you just got to keep playing him because he will play himself into form. Barnes off the left, Gordon in a 10, and Nick Woltemade. We've tried Woltemade in the 10 behind Worcester. That didn't really work. It was only 1 game though. Who knows what the answer is? I don't know. But we all, as Newcastle fans, I don't think there's a Newcastle fan who doesn't want Woltemade to succeed. We all want him to do well. We want to see him scoring goals. We want to see what was it, that whatever it is he does, that one. We want to see him. I want to see the goals that I saw the night we signed him when I came back from work at like midnight and I was YouTubing Nick Woltemade goals. I want to see some of the finishes. You know, the outside of the box, whacking it into the top corner, the dribbles, the runs. I know the Premier League is a different level to the Bundesliga. I get it. But, yeah, we want him to do well. We want him to succeed. Next season, there's been a lot of talk that he's unhappy. I don't think you can read too much into him looking a little bit gutted that Anthony Gordon didn't give him a penalty the other night. I don't think you can read anything into that. I've not seen anything on the pitch, off the pitch, that would suggest that Nick Woltemade is unhappy at Newcastle. I've seen plenty of evidence that he's frustrated, that he's not, things aren't going his way, or that he feels he's not performing as he should. But I think that's healthy. But I've not seen him moping around, and no. And I don't think Newcastle can afford to let him go in the summer, because his value hasn't increased because he hasn't performed to the levels he was, or getting the reaping the rewards he was at Stuttgart in terms of goals. So you can't argue that his value has increased. So if things carry on as they are between now and the end of the season, if a team did want to sign him, they're not going to be coming in with 70 mil plus, are they? So from a financial perspective, it would be a mistake to let him go, because we're going to make a loss. And I don't think we should give up on the player that easy. You know, Newcastle United fans, I'm not a season ticket holder. I don't go to that many games. I haven't been to a game this season yet. But whenever I've watched Newcastle United home a few times. And away, I've been to 3 away games. My first ever game was Newcastle United away to West Brom in 2015. I've been away to Southampton, Old Trafford, home matches, friendlies. I've never known a Newcastle crowd to not want a player to do well. You know, in my time watching them, we pride ourselves on supporting the players. And that's why I always say about St James's Park, in my view, it's not the most hostile atmosphere in the world, right? In terms of aggression towards the opposition, it's hostile and energetic and vociferous in terms of support for our home team, in terms of support for Newcastle United. I think certain stadiums, they get onto the opposition first and support their team second. At St James's Park, I think it's the other way round. So we need to support him, just like we need to get behind Eddie Howe. You know, certain sections of the fan base calling for his head, idiots. You don't just give up on someone as soon as you hit a sticky patch, do you? Now, Nick Woltemade has hit a sticky patch. Is he missing loads of chances? No, he's not getting the chances. If we supply him with the chances, he'll be fine. I can't imagine that Nick Woltemade is someone who isn't intelligent enough that when Eddie Howe tells him stay up the pitch, that he ignores that. He speaks fluent English. He's speaks at least 2 languages. Seems as a cultured guy. There's obviously a reason behind it. I can't imagine Eddie Howe's telling him, right, stay up front. and Nick Woltemade's going, "No, I don't fancy that," or doesn't understand that instruction. It's obviously something's going wrong. He's having to come deep to get involved in the play, or at times this season we've just not got far enough up the pitch. We're launching attacks from so deep. But there we go. Anyway, what are your thoughts? What do you think on Nick Woltemade? Am I missing something? Is there an obvious solution to this? To this conundrum, this problem? Who knows? Please like, comment, subscribe. Thank you for watching. Cheers.